So the goal of this video is to learn about flex and grid by creating a simple layout. I'm going to create a layout for you to understand. I will try to use both flex and grid on it so that we can better understand like what both of them does, what are the things that flex can do, and what are the cases where flex can be better, but what are the cases where grid actually shines, and what are the difference between them that you should know. Like I used to think that FLEXBOX and grid are pretty much same, and they are like if you're creating a layout, then you can use any of those, but there are some kind of constraints that each has, and there are some better places where you can use flex, and there are some better places where you can use grid. So I think it's very important to understand what difference both of them has, what are their capabilities, what are their superpowers, and what are the places where they kind of lack, and which one to choose when. So for that, I'm going to create a website, basically a HTML page, and I'm going to fetch some products and display the product card. So let's do that. I have cursor here. I'm going to ask cursor to do all of that. So I'll just say create a HTML page, fetch data from fixed store products, and display product card, and also create a header at the top. Okay, so now it is creating a HTML page for me. As you can see here, it is by default using grid. The AI, I think the AI kind of likes grid. But yeah, my page is now completed. I'm going to remove all this code where it is using grid and flexbox and so on. So container to build 100, that makes sense, but I don't want to give any maximum width to my container. Yeah, let me remove that. So margin, everything is fine. Auto, this is also fine. I don't want anything that has to do with grid. I'll just give it some background color, something like this. Okay, then I don't want any flex or anything like that either, so I'll just remove this as well. And then product image, I don't want to give any kind of image style to my images, so I will just say I'll also give it a background color like this. Margin is fine, everything is fine. So font color, so we have removed like pretty much everything that has to do with layout. So there is no layout in this page. I'll just copy the path. I'll go to my website, sorry, in my browser, and open the website. So now I'm getting all the product here, which is a card. You can see the product has product images, then we have product titles, the description and price, and we have all the card here. Now first, let's try to lay out this by using flex. Okay, I'll do that. Instead of going to the code, I'll use our super powerful developer tool that we have in the Chrome. We have this product grid. All right, so let's first see what is happening here. We have this product card, and product card has this image. You can see that the image has a rendered size, which is rendered with width of 1049 and height of 1500. All right, and we don't want to render this big image here. So let's give it some specific height and width. Now we can give it an absolute height and width like 400 to 500 pixel if that is your use case, but most of the time we want to maintain the aspect ratio. We want our image to be responsive, so most of the time what we prefer to do in our image is most of the time is give it a width of 100% or max width of 100%, whichever you prefer. By the way, the difference between width and max width is if you give width to 100%, then it will take the 100% of the parent, but if you give max width to 100%, then the image will never scale above its original size. So if the original width of this image is, let's say, 2053 pixel, if that is the original width of this image, then it will never be bigger than that. That's just the difference between width and max width. But yeah, I'm giving the width of 100%. I'll also give it an aspect ratio of 1, and height it will automatically pick, right? So now you can see the image is really bigger, because the thing with FLEXBOX, if we kind of like go out here and in product grid, let's give it a flex. So I'll just go out here and I'll just say display flex. Now everything is inside this flex box. If I go to product card, so product card has border, padding, radius, and everything looks fine. So go to the image also looks fine. Now I'm going to do what I'm going to do here is I'll just go out here, so display flex. Let's wrap this flex as well. Product grid and product card. Yeah, it makes sense. I'll just say flex wrap is wrap. Now when I'm wrapping this element, what's happening is that, see, the thing with flexbox is that flexbox is basically flexible, and meaning of that is that the content is going to determine or dictate the size of the box, right? So if this is our container, this is our box, let's say our flexbox, then the content inside it, which is the image size and then the width, all this content is going to dictate the size of our flexbox. But in grid are rigid. Basically in grid, the layout is actually going to dictate the size, and because of that the image is bigger, this is bigger, so our flexbox is automatically getting bigger and it doesn't look consistent. It looks actually very poor, right? So one way to solve that is if I go to my product card and if I give it a max width and say that the width will never be greater than, let's say, 300 pixel, right? Now it looks a little bit decent, everything is fine. I think I can also make the image a little bit more better by giving it an object feed of, let's say, contain, or scale down like this, or maybe contain like this. Yeah, I can remove this background color in the image. Yes, and probably I will also remove this background color of this whole container as well, so like this, so that it looks pretty decent with white and everything, right? So now you can see here, by giving the max width, we are saying that this product card should never be greater than 300 pixel, and that's the reason why image is going to take the 100% width, and the content, obviously in flexbox the content will dictate the size of it, but since we are restricting the product card to be more than 300 pixel, it will always be less than 300 pixel, and that's why everything is fitting up perfectly. But now here's a problem, right? If you see here, there's this space remaining, right? So if I just increase it, it will increase. If I decrease it, then everything will wrap, but then there is a space here because by default the content is justified to flex start. I can change that. I can go to my product grid here and I can just say justify content to center, then it will be in center and everything looks decent, no problem with it. It looks actually really good. You can see here everything is looking fine. Space it and everything is looking fine here as well, right? But maybe we don't want to align it to center, like so in this space there is this extra space here and extra space here. Maybe we don't want that space, maybe we want it across the whole screen. Maybe there are situations where you want to spread it to the whole screen, right? So let's see, in this case, then there's a lot of space here and here as well. Obviously you can use media query, but let's forget about media query for now, right? So in that case, another thing that we can do is we can just keep it in space between, right? So if we give any space between, it will take the very little space here and very little space here, so it is spread all across our viewport. If I just minimize it, then the content is spreading and taking whole kind of width, right? But the problem with this one is, see, there is a space between this content, which is making it look very weird here as well. And if I just spread it, it looks good, but then there's space between this content making it look weird. And here as well, if you see this scenario, then obviously I have to increase the max width at this condition in this specific with this specific breakpoints as well. So there's a lot of work that you need to do in this scenario. But if you just want with flex justify content to center, if this is the design that you want, then it kind of works pretty good in all the scenario. And even if there are like two content at the bottom, they will just come down here at the center, right? Now let's try grid, and let's see how grid actually solve this kind of issue and problem pretty easily without any media query and a lot of jargon code and such. So all I have to do is, let's forget about all this size. Obviously now image is bigger, everything is bigger, which is fine. Let's go to my product grid and let's go out here and give it a grid, right? So before that, let's remove this. Yeah, I'll just say display grid, and I'll just say grid template column. I'll just say 1fr, 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 and 1fr. Let's say I give 5fr to this, right? Okay, if I go out here and inspect it, let's say I give 5fr to it, like this. Now I'm dividing my column into these 5 fractions, but the image size is really bigger. So if I just see the product card here, the image size is pretty big. So let's fix that as well. I'll just go to my image, and I'll just say that my image should be, width should be 100% of its parent, like this. If I just close it up and again inspect it again, so I'll just get the view of this, right, properly shown. So what I can do is, I have these 4, if I go out here, I have these 5 fraction which is distributed into 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 pieces. Now this looks good. Let's make my image a little bit better, just as it was before. Let's give it some aspect ratio as well. Let's go out here and say aspect ratio to 1, and object fit to probably whichever looks better. Contain, yeah. Let's remove the background color as well, not necessary. It looks good, right? So as you can see here, it looks really great. If I just minimize it, then it will always be 5fr. So there are 5 column here with 5 fractions, and that looks fine, right? As you can see, that image is going to fit inside the inside the fraction, and the reason for that is because obviously in grid it is rigid. It is not as flexible as FLEXBOX, meaning that the content will not determine the size of layout, but layout is going to determine the size of the content. So we don't have to give any max width or such things here as well, because grid is actually very rigid when it comes to layout. Let's say how to make this index better. Instead of saying 5fr, I can just say like repeat 5 times 1fr, and which is basically the same as the syntax as before, but we don't want it. We want it to wrap. So when the content is actually very smaller, then we want it to be 4, and then 3, and then 2, and then 1 in the mobile device, right? So instead of repeat to 5, I want this to be automatic. So I'll just go there and say auto fill, and then for 1fr I can just say minimum and maximum width. So I'll just say, I'll go out here and say min max, and the minimum width is going to be 300 pixel. It cannot be less than 300 pixel, but maximum width is going to be 1fr, like this. So if I do this and save it, so if I increase it, you can see it is like spreading properly, and it's becoming responsive properly as well. So if the width is currently 307, so if I just decrease it, it's going to be less than 300. So the less than 300 is the minimum. It cannot be less than that, so it will just go down. So before it was like 4 fraction, the autofill has 4, but now it cannot fit this content because it cannot be less than 300 pixel. If I just minimize it, now it will be 3. So sorry, it will be 4. Previously it was 5. If I just do the same again after 300 pixel, then it will be 3. So it is responsive by itself. The content is fixed here as well. It is spread all across the design here as well. So everything works better if we use grid in this kind of scenarios. And yeah, grid kind of looks perfect for this specific use case. Cheers. Hopefully you learned something. See you in the next one.